All right, 3 o'clock. What's up, my friends? The NBA schedule is out. The Trailblazers will open up the season Wednesday, October 22nd against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Tip off at 7. The Warriors will be in town on Friday, the 24th. Portland is going to be featured on national television 7 times. 7 of their final 10 games are at Moda Center, and their longest trip on the road this season, just 5 games. Our Trailblazers insider, Sean Highkin, going to join me in studio at 4. The voice of your Trailblazers, Travis Demers, is going to jump on the show coming up at 3:20 from the NFL. According to Rams head coach Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford will work out on Saturday. He is yet to practice during camp due to a bad disc in his back. The Seahawks host the Chiefs tomorrow night at Lumen Field. Week 2 of the preseason. That kickoff is at 7. Mariners trail the Orioles right now 5-2, top of 9th in Baltimore. Bases are loaded for the M's with just 1 out. Nah, nah. All right, what's going on, Rip City Drive? That song cracks me up. We don't have to take our clothes off. It might be a lot more fun if we did, but we don't have to. Oh, no. We don't need naked time. All right, big show today. Travis Demers is going to stop by here in 17 minutes, the voice of your Portland Trailblazers. We'll get his take on the NBA schedule, which is dropped. And I think it shapes up nicely for your Trailblazers. And then Sean Highkin, our Trailblazer insider from Rose Garden Report, going to join me in studio at 4 o'clock. Obviously, we'll talk schedule, but I want to dive in more on the news of the ownership for the Portland Trailblazers. Sean Highkin going to join us coming up at 4 o'clock. And then at 5:20, I've got a special guest who's going to join the show. His name is John Turok, and he is the gentleman who's trying to, he's got this push that we'll dive deeper on with him to make the Trailblazers community-owned. And it looks like the new owner's looking for minority investors, so there could be an opportunity there. So that's kind of what we got set up for the show today. Of course, there are multiple ways for you to participate. You can listen live and podcast the show on our free iHeartRadio app. You can set 620 Rip City Radio as position 1 on your stations and be able to access the show and never miss any of our content. You can go to youtube.com and pull up our homepage, Rip City Radio 620. You can like and subscribe the page, and all of our local shows are streamed so you can see in studio and, check out everything that's going on here at iHeart. You can reach out to me on the phones, 503-248-0620. You can find me on social at Chad in Rip City. That telephone number, again, is 503-248-0620. So Travis Demers coming up in 15 minutes. Sean Hyken in studio at 4 o'clock, and then we'll talk with John Turok. He'll join the program at 5:20. So there you have it. And by the way, thanks for your time. It was a mess getting into town once again today. I know that's not a big surprise. Anytime you got to make the journey from Vancouver into Portland, it's like taking your life into your own hands because you never know when traffic's going to be jacked up. When I was up early, I was heading out to play golf this morning early, well before 7 o'clock. It's probably about, I don't know, maybe just before 6, maybe right at about 6. I think it was about 5:45, somewhere in that area. I got the flashing signs coming down I-5 southbound that there was a wreck on the bridge. And it said the left lanes were the through lanes. Well, that sign was wrong because you could only pass by on one lane on the far right. I don't know what happened, but someone looked like they stopped in the middle of the bridge and then got rammed in the back by multiple cars. There were like 4 or 5 cars involved. I started to grip that I might miss my tee time. I was finally able to get past it, and everything was fine. But of course, anytime there's one wreck around the bridge on I-5, it jacks up the freeway the rest of the day. So by the time I got home, got cleaned up, and came back into town, it was still a train wreck out there. So messy. It's like, of course that happened. So we'll see. There's supposed to be some rain coming in sometime later tonight and tomorrow, but it looks like it's going to be nice throughout the course of the weekend on Saturday and Sunday as we enter week 2 of the NFL preseason. I know the Hawks are hosting the Chiefs tomorrow night at Lumen Field. 7 o'clock kickoff. That's going to be nice. And now we're just a couple of weeks away from, the real start of college football, which is awesome. So we have a lot of great things going on. And we're still enjoying the warm temperatures and the summertime, which is terrific. So I appreciate your time. A lot of good things going on. Travis Demers coming up at 3:20. But the Trailblazers schedule, oh, by the way, the Mariners just went final. They lose by a score of 5-3 and make that back-to-back losses for the M's as they continue their 9-game road trip. And we talked to the Godfather Dwight James yesterday, and he said it, and I think he's right. The Mariners look like a team that belongs in the World Series this year. With the added power and pop in the lineup, getting Suarez, with the pitching staff that they have, with the way they're playing defense right now, there's no reason to believe that they can't make a deep run. I know it's hard to say, and I know Mariner fans have been scarred from years of ineptitude, but that's the reality. It's going to be like this now for the rest of the year. They're going to be in a big-time battle for the division with Houston. They're going to be right there battling out wild card position, potentially, if they don't win the division. It's pretty sweet. Well, the Trailblazers are going to open up their season Wednesday, October 22nd against the Minnesota Timberwolves. That tip-off will be at 7 o'clock. And then Friday the 24th, game number 2 of the season, the Golden State Warriors are in town before a Sunday-Monday trip to Los Angeles to take on the Clippers and the Lakers. So that's how they come out of the gate. The good thing is about this schedule, a couple of different things that I noticed. One, they're going to finish up the year playing a lot of home games. And for a team that I think is going to be battling it out for playoffs, to have a bunch of games at the end of the year at home could be very good. 7 of their final 10 games are at Moda Center with games against Brooklyn, Milwaukee, Dallas, and Washington. They traveled to L.A. to take on the Clippers on March 31st. Back home for the Pelicans, at Denver, at San Antonio before back-to-back home games on Friday, April 10th, and Sunday, April 12th against the Clippers and the Kings to finish out the year. So I think it sets up nicely. Also, we're not going to see one of those extended, long, grueling road trips. The longest road trip on the schedule this year is 5 games. And that's good because when you have a young team, you get away from home, you're on an extended road trip where you experience fatigue. You can drop several games in a situation like that, but they're not going to have to face that this year, which is really cool. And I think that sets up nicely for the Blazers. Also, multiple games that will be featured on national television. 7 of them. On Tuesday, November 18th, they're going to have an 8 o'clock tip at home against Phoenix. That will be on NBC. And there are a few of those 8 p.m. tip-off times, which is rare. We haven't seen that in forever. Normally, the latest tip-off time in Portland would be 7:30 on the West Coast, but now with the new TV deal, NBC has moved around some of the times, and that's going to be an 8 o'clock tip against Phoenix on November 18th. After that, they're going to have a game on Prime on Friday, the day after Christmas on the 26th against the LA Clippers. 7 o'clock tip from Moda on Prime. And then on December 29th, a home game against the Mavericks. 8 o'clock tip on NBC. At the beginning of January on the 13th, they'll be at Golden State. 8 o'clock tip on NBC. Later in the year, Tuesday, February 3rd, home game against Phoenix. 8 o'clock tip. That will be on NBC. Minnesota, February 24th, 8 o'clock tip on NBC. And later in the year, on March 31st, at the Clippers, 8 o'clock tip on NBC. So I think that's great. Portland featured on national television. And the reason why I like that is, this is a team that wasn't featured on national television last year, maybe one game. But they've got some exciting young players. Denny Avdia, Tamani Kamara, Scoot Henderson, Shaden Sharp, all the young guys that we're excited about. And now, because they're going to be featured multiple times on national television, maybe more people around the league will start to take notice of guys like Tamani Kamara, one of the best on-ball defenders in the NBA. Or Denny Avdia, who in his first year in Portland showcased his great all-around talent. His ability to push the tempo, make shots, create for his teammates, and very tenacious on defense. And then, of course, you've got the two young guards in Scoot Henderson and Shaden Sharp, the two players that I think are the most important for this continued rebuild of the franchise. If those two guys cash and hit for the Blazers, they're going to be just fine. But now, more eyeballs will be able to take notice of what the Trailblazers are doing. And then we'll see how things play out with young Hansen and how much playing time he's going to get, how quickly he adapts to the NBA game and the officiating, playing the center position. There's just going to be an opportunity for people to watch. But there's no doubt that with Hansen on the roster, the interest from the fans in China, the Blazers are going to be a team that you're going to want to pay attention to. But this is a great opportunity for Chauncey Billups to really start to unleash the type of guys that he's put together now. The Blazers this year, I think, are going to win around 45 to 46 games. And they're also going to be a different type of team than what we've seen in the past. They're going to win games, number one, with defense. And the reason why that's great is that when you go through those stretches throughout the course of the year, whether it's a road trip or guys are feeling fatigued or your offense just isn't hitting on all cylinders, you can lean on defense every night. You get stops, you create turnovers, you can manufacture easy buckets, and that's what it's all about because the NBA schedule, and you've heard me say this before, you're playing so many games in so few nights, you don't have a lot of time to practice. You fly into one arena, you fly out to another one. You have just enough time for a shoot-around, so it can get kind of hectic. And without that extra practice time to get guys together and really fine-tune some of the things that have been ailing you, it's nice to be able to have defense that you can lean on and get stops and create easy buckets and put yourself in a position to have success, which is really nice. So there you have it. The Blazers' schedule is out. They'll open up on the 22nd of October against Minnesota. 7 of the final 10 games are at home. 7 games are on national television. And a chance for more people to see the young players that we enjoy. All right, when we come back, the voice of your Trailblazers, Travis Demers, is going to stop by. We'll get his take on the Blazers' schedule. And then Sean Highkin in studio at 4 o'clock. I appreciate your time. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, I'm very happy to call him a great friend, and he's the voice of your Portland Trailblazers. Travis Demers joins us here on the Rip City Drive. Trav, it's amazing, but the more time that goes on, the more I realize how right you were about so many different things. And Daniel Jones is one of those guys because you told me when the Giants drafted him that you didn't like the draft pick. You thought he was going to be a bad quarterback. I watched him play the other night for the Colts in week 1 of the preseason. They got Anthony Richardson, who got hurt again, and then they turn it over to Daniel Jones. And I'm like, thank God I'm not a Colts fan. It's awful.
Well, Chad, if you remember in like December, I remember calling you from my hotel room in San Francisco, watching Duke play in a bowl game, and telling you how much I hated Daniel Jones. And then, like 4 or 5 months later, you and I are sitting in the studios over at KGW, and here comes the draft pick, and it's Daniel Jones, and I walked out of the room.
You did. Yeah, you were right. You were right. He's awful. And I just can't imagine how Chris Ballard, who's done a pretty good job of putting a roster together, can enter a season with Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones thinking that's a good idea, because it's a very bad idea. Oh, geez.
Yeah, maybe he can make a trade with the Giants and get Jameis Winston or something, because that would be 1,000 times better.
All right, Travis, the schedule is out. I know you've got a certain unique way that you look at the schedule as the voice of the Blazers, but what are some of the key things that jumped out at you with the Blazers' schedule this year?
Well, honestly, Chad, I'm going into year 8 doing this, and this is the most favorable schedule in terms of travel that I've seen. And I know fans see it should be right for every game, but you don't realize the type of strain that long road trips and continued long road trips put on anybody's body until you're a part of it. And when you're in that 6th or 7th game of a road trip and your 4th time back and you're exhausted, just sitting there, and I'm tired. And I can't imagine those guys are as it's tiring. I mean, the last game of a 7-game trip last year, they go into Oklahoma City, who rested every single one of their starters, and they still got smoked because they were just completely gassed. And there's 5 games. There are 3 of them.
All right, Travis Demers, we're going to try and get that connection redone. He's got good things to say, and frankly, I can't take it. You know it, and I know it. I've said this before, but the death of me is some point will probably be technology. And I'll ask the question again. How is it that on this earth that we live on and technology, that these cell phones that we carry around in our pockets that are like mini computers, I can pull up any type of information or image in the world, but yet the most basic function, which is making a phone call, you can't have a clear connection. You figure one of these big communication companies would be able to figure it out by now. It just drives me bonkers. So there you have it. So we'll try and reconnect with Travis Demers. But, yeah, the schedule for the Blazers, I like the way it shapes up. They get a chance to get some rest. The longest road trip is 5 games. They finish up with a number of games at home, 7 out of 10. And they're going to be featured on national television with 7 different nationally televised games between NBC and Prime and Peacock. So it's a great opportunity. And I think for the Blazer fans, right out of the gate, you get the Golden State Warriors in town on Friday, October 24th. They're going to have a nice break around Thanksgiving. They do not play on Christmas, but play the day after. And this year they're going to play a game on New Year's Eve, a game in Oklahoma City, and not on New Year's Day. So the Blazers are going to get a chance to, I think, do well this year. Like I said, I've got them, right around 45 or 46 wins. I can't wait to see how it's going to come together through camp. And most importantly, I'm just excited to see, they talk a lot about internal development or, the continued work with their young guys. I can't wait to see them. All right, we'll bring Travis back on. Travis, I'm sorry about that, but you got good information to share. I didn't want the connection to take away from that.
Yeah, sorry about that. I know how much you love bad cell phone reception and how much technology gets in the way.
Yes.
But so I'm not sure how much of that you heard, but basically the long road trips, there's only 3 5-game road trips. There's no 6-game road trips. There's no 7-game road trips. I have never had a year where we didn't have at least one 6 or 7-game trip. And the other thing too, Chad, is we don't have any road trips this year that are weird, from like Dallas to Charlotte back to Oklahoma or anything like that. We don't have any of those. So this is, in terms of travel and the way that it's set up, yeah, there are 15 back-to-backs, but that includes, two situations at home where they're playing the same team in back-to-back nights, or back-to-back games and back-to-back nights with the Lakers and Clippers, both of them in L.A. And, those things really do make a difference. There's only one home road back-to-back, which are absolutely brutal, and that's down to Sacramento and back. So in all of those things that can really, even for a young team, really mess with them physically, those are real things. And nobody travels more than the Blazers do because of where we are on the map. This is the most favorable travel schedule that I've seen in 8 years.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And you're right about those long 7-game road trips, especially when they come in the second half of the season when guys are nicked up. You have fatigue that sets in, and they've been on the road for an extended period of time. I mean, you can go through a losing streak just on the basis of attrition or fatigue. It's hard to be able to keep it together on an extended trip, which is nice. I also like the way that they close up at home. 7 of their final 10 games are at Moda Center. That gives them a chance to really finish the year on a high note.
Yeah, it does. And, you got a road game in there against the Clippers, and you play the Spurs, and who knows where San Antonio will be at the end of the year, depending on health and all that stuff. You'd expect them to be pretty good. But to your point, 7 out of 10 at home, and you finish the year with a couple of games at home against some teams that you might be battling it out with for playoff positioning. They did really well against the East last year. And there's a bunch of games, bunched together against the East like we usually see. And I really think, if we're talking about the team, there's a good chance that on most nights they'll be competitive. Sure, they'll lose a game by 20. Maybe they lose 3 or 5 of them, but not as many as we've seen in years past.
Yeah, it's great. We're talking with Travis Demers, voice of the Trailblazers. How about the team being featured on 7 nationally televised games between NBC, Prime, and Peacock?
Yeah, I think it's 8, actually. Not to be that guy and correct you and be actually.
You're
guy.
right.
You know
it is 8.
You love that. But, yeah. So to have that number of games, so I think there's 6 on NBC, 1 on Prime, and 1 on Peacock. And it's not just road games. There's some home games in there. Some of those are 8 o'clock starts, which is new this year. But it's great to be able to be in a situation where people are taking notice of this team. And when there was, 1 last year, and now you've got 8 this year, you could be like some other teams. Like Detroit is on national TV, I think, 16 times this year. So to be up for a team that hasn't been to the playoffs in several years now, to have 8 nationally televised games, I know there are more avenues for that to take place now, but that's really great.
Yeah, I just think it's great because now more eyeballs around the country will be able to notice and recognize players like Tamani Kamara, who's one of the best on-ball defenders in the NBA, or the great all-around play that we see from Denny Avdia, or the emergence of the 2 young guards in Scoot and Shade. And it's nice that people are going to have a chance to see them.
Yeah, and also one of those games is the Peacock game is a 5 o'clock Eastern start in Boston. So that's going to be a game that a lot of people watch. Because a lot of times over the years, Chad, these national games the Blazers get, the Thursday night TNT game and things like that.
Yeah,
they're 7:30 Pacific. They're usually against Denver or Houston or somebody like that. And people on the East Coast aren't staying up to watch those games. I can't remember the last time that there was an East Coast national game for this team at a prime time Eastern time situation. So that's a big deal too.
You mentioned the 8 o'clock tip times on the NBC games. What's the purpose of that change for NBC?
I haven't heard anything. My guess is probably something with national programming and things like that because, you have, local news and local programming on a major network now, which on TNT that didn't matter, right? So it's probably something to do with whatever, programming that NBC has because those games are either at 8 o'clock Eastern or 8 o'clock Pacific. So you have that 7:30 window. I don't even know what's on local TV in those times anymore. But whatever is, that's obviously a window that's important to NBC to keep, so they're not preempting some of that programming.
We're talking with Travis Demers, voice of the Trailblazers. Were you surprised at the news with the Trailblazers ownership situation yesterday?
I was actually, because it's only been a couple of months since we heard that this team was going to be up for sale, and it still could be several months before things, are finalized. Right now, everything's reported. We've heard details and stuff, and nothing's official. And if you remember when the Celtics had the same announcement a couple of months ago, their sale still isn't even finalized yet. They just had the NBA just put out, I think it was yesterday, that the Board of Governors all approved the sale, and that it will take some time to finish getting that closed up. So it's going to be, I don't know how long, it could be 3 months, it could be 6 months, but that's still a ways off from being finalized and completed. But I was surprised that it did not take long for that situation to come to fruition.
Yeah, my biggest takeaway is that I think it's the best case scenario for Blazer fans because I think it really indicates that the team more than likely is going to remain in Portland for the foreseeable future, which is awesome.
Fans care about two things, Chad: the team staying in Portland and the team winning. And I believe in this current situation, if everything plays out the way that we're hearing, those things are going to happen.
Yeah, no doubt. And for me, I've never asked you this, or maybe we've talked about it, but for me, when it comes to an owner, I just want to know if they care about winning, and then do they want to invest their resources, to be able to make that happen. That's really what I care most about. Paul Allen was that guy, and that's all I'm looking for in any owner of the teams that I root for.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's a little different for me and you too, because we're, employees of the team in various ways. Are we going to be able to do our job? And I don't see that being an issue.
Exactly. Well, it's cool, man. I'm excited about the start of the season. Minnesota and Golden State right out of the gate. That's a good way to start it right there. A couple of Western Conference opponents with big names.
Yeah, and look, are those games winnable? Sure. We haven't beaten Golden State in forever, so I would really like to beat them early in the season. But Minnesota's a team that we've had success with. We won both games against them at home last year, including the Cup game. And then you go on the road, play the Lakers and Clippers and Utah. And is it difficult? Sure, but the Western Conference is difficult for everybody.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, I have not seen it yet because I haven't been inside of Moda, but I hear that there's a lot of excitement about the new video boards and stat boards are going to be on display when the season kicks off, man. I can't wait to see it with the information and the new look. I guess it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either. And anytime that I go to an arena that either I have not been to or they have new signage and monitors and stuff, it always takes me a little bit to figure out where everything is, because what I look for is where do they display the timeouts and the fouls and some things like that. So, all of the other stuff is great for fans. I've got a ton of information in front of me, so I don't need it the same way. But there's stuff like I have to know where the clock is. I have to know where the timeouts are. I have to know where the fouls are. And so it takes me a little bit to kind of figure that out. But to be able to have some new stuff in there where we desperately needed it, I'm pretty fired up about that.
All right, Travis Demers, voice of the Trailblazers here on the Rip City Drive. Thanks for your time, my friend. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. We'll catch up soon.
Always, brother. We'll talk soon.
All right, there you go, Travis Demers. And he's right. I'm glad he corrected me. I miscounted. 8 games to be featured on national television. 6 of those will be on NBC. 1 will be on Prime. And 1 will be on Peacock, now that the new television deal and the NBA, its new partners, will be taken over, and we get the NBA back on NBC. When I was young, the NBA was on CBS, on TBS, and TNT. And then as time went on, NBC took over as the national carrier with Marv Albert. And it was still on TNT, and things have changed. And now it's going back to NBC. So if you have any thoughts on the schedule, you can reach out 503-248-0620. I did hear that those new video boards, I haven't seen it because I haven't been inside of Moda, but I guess those new video boards are going to be awesome, like really cool. Gone is the old Jumbotron, but now you're going to have a new board that's going to be great in terms of replay and being able to watch the action. And then it's going to be very analytical in terms of the numbers and the stats and what you're going to be able to follow throughout the course of the game when you're at the arena, which I think is great because, there's a lot of basketball nerds who love the analytics, and they want to follow the numbers, they'll make it easy to do that. You've got people there who might be playing fantasy basketball, and then you've got people there who are going to be wagering on the games too. So whether you're a gambler, fantasy sports, just a big NBA fan, those new boards are going to be awesome, and they'll be up and running and ready to rock for the upcoming season. So Sean Hyken will come by. He'll stop by at 4 o'clock. We'll talk with him and get his thoughts on the schedule, and then we'll get his thoughts on the new ownership with Mr. Dundon agreeing to terms to buy the team for a reported, like, what, $4.3 billion? And I mentioned it yesterday. You always wonder, like, Paul Allen bought the team for $80 million when he purchased it way back in the day, and they sell it for $4.3 billion. So if you ever wonder what a difference is between $1 million and $1 billion, I love this simple math. 1,000,000 seconds is like 11 days. 1,000,000,000 seconds is 31.7 years. That's the difference between a million and a billion. And that's how much these teams have increased in value over the course of time. It's unbelievable. So excited about that. And we'll get Hyken's thoughts on that. And then we'll talk to John Turok at 5:20. And he's the one that's trying to form this community ownership where you get multiple investors and you create, I'm assuming, something like we see in Green Bay. But we'll talk to him at 5:20 and get his take. So there you have it. Outside of that, the Mariners fall today. Their second straight game at Baltimore as they continue this 9-game road trip. The week 2 of the NFL preseason will kick off tomorrow. The Hawks will host the Chiefs, and then we'll get another weekend of being able to see the young quarterbacks. It doesn't look like Shedeur Sanders is going to be available in week 2, unfortunately, with the oblique. But, the season's coming quick. And, teams are going to be wrapping up camp and then beginning their week 1 preparations. But that's really what I'm most excited about right now is the quarterbacks in 2 different piles. You've got the rookies who are coming in, getting a chance to play. That's guys like Jackson Dart, Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward. And then I want to watch these year 2 guys, Drake May, Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels. Those players I have great interest in. Will there be a sophomore slump? Will Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels continue to thrive? Is Caleb Williams going to be able to figure out some of the issues that plague him right now so he can really fit in seamlessly with that Ben Johnson offense? I like the way that Ben Johnson is handling Caleb Williams right now. I mean, I guess that maybe a good way to put it would be like tough love. Like he's really working him hard right now and placing great demands on him at camp with the Bears. But I think that's exactly what Williams needs because he had a lot of freedom to improvise and do whatever he wanted in college at both Oklahoma and USC. And now that he's in the NFL, he needs more structure and discipline in his game. And that comes in a variety of different ways. One, how he carries himself and leads the team, keeping his emotions in check. Because with the quarterback or your starting quarterback, your franchise, they have to be able to be in control of their emotions. You want the fire, you want the passion, you want the competitive nature to come out. But they've got to be able to keep their cool under pressure and not flip out and go crazy when they screw up a drill at practice. But you also need someone that will run the play the way it's designed. And then you need someone that can continue to, fine-tune their skills so they're getting rid of the football on time and on target. And that's what makes the NFL so great, the precision that goes into every play. You've got a 3-step drop, 5-step drop, 7-step drop, whatever it is. As soon as you get on your foot, boom, that ball's got to be out. And the defense is unlike college or what these quarterbacks are accustomed to in college. You've got guys all across the field who are elite at every position. So if you're late with the football, you don't put it on the numbers, you're going to throw a pick. You're going to make a mistake. If you don't get rid of the football on time, you're going to have a 300-pounder breathing down your neck, coming off the edge and sacking you, possibly causing a turnover. And as a quarterback, yes, it's about making plays, especially on third down. That's where quarterbacks make their money, third down plays. But it's also about getting your team in the right play, not turning it over, not making the big mistake, and learning to live to fight another down. And that's a lot for these young guys to take on. And then you got the pressure, the intensity, and all of the focus on you because you're the quarterback. And in Caleb Williams' situation, you were taken number 1 overall. So fans expect a lot from you, and understandably so. All right, we'll keep things rolling. I appreciate your time. Chad Doing with you on the Rip City Drive. Your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, Sean Hyken, our Trailblazer insider from Rose Garden Report, will join me in studio coming up at 4 o'clock. I had someone just reach out and ask me if the hustle boards will remain with the new monitors and screens that will be at Motor Center this year. And the answer to that question is yes. I don't know exactly how it's going to look, but I think the hustle board stats will be a part of the new in-zone screens, which are awesome. So they've got special plans. They got some good things they're working on over there at Motor Center. I can't talk about everything. I just know they're working on some great stuff for the fan experience. And I heard that Portland has got the best in-game food offerings in terms of local flavor. You know, the Trailblazers do a heck of a job of bringing Portland inside Motor Center to where you get a lot of the local restaurants where you can grab a bite to eat during the course of the game. But, you know, they're doing a lot of good work over there, so I'm excited to see it. But these new monitors, the screens, and the fan experience is going to be much better this year, which is very good. All right, a couple of different things we need to listen to. First off, Denzel Washington, megastar, huge Cowboy fan. He is done with Jerry Jones. He's out on Jera, and that's a shame because I love Jera. He's a bit crazy, but I love the fact that he's so willing to talk and communicate weekly with press conferences, on the radio. He's very open and transparent as an NFL owner because most owners across sport don't talk, but Jerry does. But Denzel has had enough. Always going to be a Cowboy fan, but he's done with Jera.
I've been a Cowboy fan since the 60s. He's making it hard for me. Wow. Not to be a fan, because I'm still a Cowboy fan. I'm still going to have the star on the side of the hat. But he ain't thinking about us. He's thinking about his pocket.
Okay. I mean,
says it all.
Get Jerry Jones on the phone.
Get him on the phone. What does he say? You tell me. What does he say?
He says that
he's
talking
getting rich.
about my Cowboys, we're the most successful brand in sports. You know.
You mean in terms of what, championship?
No, of course he can't say championship. He can't say championship. He's talking about recognition, notoriety, dollars and cents.
In sports?
I said, but in the end,
more than the Yankees?
You haven't been in an NFC championship game or a Super Bowl in 30 years. 30 years, okay? And for some reason, he's just stubborn, man. And then you got his son sitting there talking about Michael Parsons like, hey, he got to want to sign the contract. What? Makes no sense, guys. But you know this.
There's box office and there's Oscars. Jerry, been a while, huh? You ain't been to the show. You wouldn't know.
Wow. That's Denzel Washington. You know what's crazy about the Cowboys? And the reason why they've annoyed me for a number of years, I'm a Bronco fan. So I'm just going to put all my cards on the table. I hate the fact that there's one team in the NFL that has the gall to refer them to themselves as America's team. I live in America. I'll decide who America's team is. I just hate the arrogance that exudes from Cowboy fans. If you've been in a sports bar, if you've been to a game where the Cowboys are playing, if you've been around a bunch of Cowboy fans in their silver and blue with the stars, they're very annoying. And I realize that that's pretty much every fan base, but Cowboy fans, they're just a little bit bigger and a little more brash than the majority of fans. But here's the reality. The younger audience, the younger football fans out there, they didn't grow up with the Cowboys that I did or that a lot of you did that were known as one of the all-time great teams with their dynasty in the 90s. All they've known is mediocre football. That's it. And that's what the Cowboys are now, is a mediocre football team that is run by a mediocre front office with Jerry Jones. And I'm a big fan of Jerry because he's been so great for the game, and he's an ambassador. And he had great success early, but like a lot of these guys, ego got in the way. He got rid of Jimmy Johnson, and the rest is history. Everything went downhill. But they haven't won a championship since the 95 season. 30 years ago. That was the last time. So there's an entire generation of football fans who have grown up. They don't know the Cowboys being good. They know the Cowboys being average to below average. That's not America's team. I'd make the argument that right now America's team is Philadelphia or Kansas City. When Peyton Manning was in Denver, it was the Broncos. But the Cowboys haven't been America's team for a long time. Just a bunch of brash talk with nothing to back it up. They're a joke. And it makes me happy. Now, don't get me wrong. I like Jerry and I respect him, but, at some point, and he won't because he's at the late stages in his life, but his inability to understand that he needed to surround himself with better people and allow them to do their job has cost him dearly. Ego has cost him dearly, but it's also his ego that makes him wildly entertaining. But Denzel Washington, how about that? There's box office and there's Oscars. Meaning you can have a bunch of fans show up and buy your merchandise and pay for the tickets, but you're not winning any rings. Brutal. Really. But that's why Cowboy fans annoy me. It's like, what have you guys done? You're not going anywhere. You're not going to win anything. And they're one of the worst teams in their division. Philadelphia and Washington are light years ahead of the Cowboys right now. And, of course, my apologies to any Cowboy fans, but you know the truth. You know what's going on out there. Elsewhere, Taylor Swift, I watched it last night. I was curious, but she went on the New Heights podcast with Travis and Jason Kelce. And, of course, her and Travis are an item, but she was basically breaking out her new album and talking about it. And I thought she did a great job. Like Taylor Swift, I'm not down. I don't listen to her music, but I respect her. But I thought the way she handled herself on the podcast, she's such a natural behind the camera. She was looking in the camera, answering all the questions. When she was talking about her new album and the songs that are on it, you can hear the passion come through her voice. I mean, she loves being an artist. She loves creating. And she put this album together when she was on tour with the Eras Tour. Her work ethic and determination, very impressive. I mean, there's a reason why she's wildly successful. But she talked about learning some different coverages.
We're talking about cover 2, cover 4, cover 0, man, cover. We're learning. I continue to learn.
Maybe somebody else that even knows what those coverages are.
Yeah, I'm not ready to be an analyst right now, but give me 16 months.
Amazing. She also talked about how she thought football was played.
I thought that the quarterbacks.
I mean, that's how you played it on the playground growing up. So I understand if you hadn't
No, you don't understand. I thought it was like Jared Goff is here and Josh Allen's here, and they're gonna be like. They blow a whistle and then they go at each other and they're like, and it's like, who's gonna win?
That's actually.
I would love to see Jared Goff play some defense. Let's see Jared Goff on defense.
I've got some ideas. I've got some thoughts.
Yeah, she was great. I would encourage you to check it out. Life of a Showgirl is the name of the new album. But she was great on that podcast. Amazing. And the amount of, I think at one point they had like 1.3 million congruent viewers on the podcast at one time. Their numbers spiked immensely, as you might expect. All right, Sean Hyken's going to join me in studio next. We'll talk about the new ownership that's coming in and the schedule which dropped today. I'm Chad doing Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, now 4 o'clock. What's going on, my friends? Hope you're enjoying your Thursday. We start with the NBA schedule, which is now out. The Trailblazers open up the season Wednesday, October 22nd against the Minnesota Timberwolves. That tip at 7. The Warriors are going to be in town on Friday the 24th. Portland's going to be featured on national television 8 times. 7 of their final 10 games are at Moda Center, and their longest road trip on the season, just 5 games. Sean Highkin, our Trailblazer insider from Rose Garden Report, is going to join me in studio next. From the NFL, Rams head coach Sean McVay says Matthew Stafford's going to work out Saturday. Is yet to practice during camp due to a bad disc in his back. The Seahawks will host the Chiefs tomorrow night at Lumen Field. Week 2 of the preseason, that kickoff at 7. Mariners fall to the Orioles today by a final score of 5-3 on their current 9-game road trip. That's now back-to-back losses for Seattle after 8 straight wins. More of the Rip City Drive coming at you right now.
To my left. We good? All right.
Let me give you a little light.
All right, we good?
All right, little Thursday treat for me. I've got my buddy and our Trailblazer insider from Rose Garden Report, Sean Highkin, in studio. A lot of things to unpack today. The NBA schedule is out, and we'll get into that in just a moment. But we've now had over 24 hours to kind of let the news sink in about the ownership situation with the Trailblazers, with Tom Dundon agreeing to purchase the team for roughly around $4.3 billion. What are some other things that you've uncovered or had a chance to process that come to mind now after getting the news yesterday?
I'm still kind of figuring out what to make of it, just like everybody else is. And I'm also just curious how long it's going to take to have everything be finalized. Like, is any of that going to get done before this coming season is over? But from most of what I've read online, and, I've made a couple of calls, I've talked to a couple of people, but most of what I've been seeing is just kind of reactions from people online and people who are, cover the Hurricanes, or people who are Hurricanes fans. Like, I went on the Hurricanes subreddit and kind of looked at some of the reaction there. Overall, the fans seem to like him because the team was not very good before he bought the team. They hadn't made the playoffs 9 years in a row, and then they've made the playoffs the last 7. So as far as the on ice stuff, it seems like there's a lot to like about kind of his approach and his strategy. And the thing that I've kind of gathered from a few different places is that he doesn't really make emotional decisions, and he doesn't really make sentimental decisions. And so, he's kind of a very calculating, numbers focused type of guy as far as the decisions that he makes. So that's something I think to keep in mind. So there's that, and then I'm still kind of figuring out what things are like behind the scenes in the organization as far as that type of stuff, because that stuff's also important.
Yeah, it really is. And we'll find out more and more details as time goes on. From what I read, it looks like he's made his money in a variety of different areas. Early on, got involved in a auto financing business, which he ended up becoming the CEO of. He's also been involved in a capital company, which I think gives out money to, some of these big groups like on Wall Street.
Yeah.
And then also real estate, like a lot of these guys do. He's made a lot of money in real estate as well, but that's, kind of his expertise. And then obviously made the decision to get involved in sports with the Hurricanes. And after purchasing a large chunk of the team, he just recently bought the rest of the shares. So he's now the sole owner of the Hurricanes. So he's kind of unique in terms of his varied interests.
Well, what's interesting, and this is maybe this just shows how much sports team valuations have exploded over the last several years, and also it just shows just how much bigger the NBA is than the NHL. But he bought his initial majority stake in the Hurricanes for $425 million.
Yes.
Literally 10 times that is what his group is paying for the Blazers. Now, granted, that money is not all coming from him. There are the minority investors that are also going to be part of it. And from what it sounds like, he's actively recruiting more people to invest in it, especially people with local ties. We heard Tim Boyle, the CEO of Columbia Sportswear, talk about how he's been in contact with him about potentially making an investment. So it's going to be a little bit of a bigger group. It's probably not going to be a situation where this guy is the only guy who owns the team and is the only guy that makes any decisions. So in that sense, it's going to be a little bit of a change from the way he runs things with the Hurricanes. The part about his background that's the most interesting to me, probably for obvious reasons, is the real estate stuff, because it's not even just what's going to happen down the line with an arena. Are they going to renovate the Moda Center like they've been planning to, or are they going to try to get some funding to build a new arena? But, the Blazers and, other groups like the Albina Vision Trust have been talking for years about potentially redeveloping that area around the Moda Center and around the Rose Quarter campus. And so I would have to think that whoever is buying the Blazers, a big part of, besides, NBA teams are really valuable right now, and it's fun to own a sports team. I would have to think another part of the appeal for any of these rich guys is there's a lot of real estate there, and there's not a whole lot going on with it. So there's a lot of money you could potentially make redeveloping it and putting other stuff there.
All right. Well, we know what the biggest concern of Blazer fans is with this entire ownership thing, and that's whether or not the team's going to remain in Portland or move elsewhere. You and I have been pretty much on the same page. I've never really been too concerned about the team being moved out of the city of Portland. But in relation to the team remaining in Portland, what do you think Dundon means for that?
Well, the messaging from this group, just from everything I've heard and from people I've talked to, is that their plan is to keep the team in Portland long term. And I realize that you have to say that when it is reported that you're going to buy the team. You're not going to come out and say, "Oh yeah, we're buying the team. We're going to move it to Seattle." Like, they tried that when that guy bought was going to buy the Sacramento Kings in 2013, Chris Hansen, and was like, "Yeah, I'm going to move to Seattle." And then, it didn't end up working out that way. But I think the fact that you look at, when he bought the Hurricanes, at the time, I've gone back and read some stuff. And there was really, a lot of, because the Hurricanes were not doing well. The team wasn't good. They also weren't making money. They weren't selling, whatever. There was a lot of talk at the time about, whoever buys the Hurricanes is going to move them somewhere. And Houston was kind of the place that was rumored at the time, because Tom Dundon is based in Texas, and Houston is like the biggest, major market that doesn't have a NHL team. And so that was kind of something that was rumored when he bought the team. And it turns out, no, that was he never even really tried to do that. He just, he bought the team. He signed a short-term extension to stay playing at their arena, and then eventually they worked out a long-term renovation project, and now the team is signed there through 2044. And the other thing to keep in mind is that even though the other professional sports team that he owns is obviously based in North Carolina, he doesn't live in North Carolina, so it's not like, he's a Seattle guy, so obviously he's going to try to buy a team and move it to Seattle. He lives in the Dallas area. Dallas already has an NBA team, so it's not like, he's clearly from somewhere, or like, when Clay Bennett bought the Sonics, everybody knew he was from Oklahoma City and he wanted to have a team in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those red flags that you would normally see when a guy who's from somewhere or has roots somewhere buys a team. That's not really a factor here.
I agree. And the team or the place where he currently has his NHL team, they've already got an NBA team nearby.
In North Carolina,
in Charlotte.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think this is good news. I think it's the best case scenario for Blazer fans, because it means that the team is going to be here long term. Now, I've heard some things that you can expect on the business side behind the scenes with Dundon, but with all the people I've talked to in regard to the product, on the floor or on the ice, with the Hurricanes, he's someone that really cares about winning and is invested in making sure that takes place. And for me, you and I talked about this yesterday, I care about two things when it comes to an owner. Everything else is just nonsense to me. Do they have a passion and a desire to win? And then are they willing to spend their resources to make that happen? If the answer to those two questions is yes, then we're going to get along just fine. That's what it's all about for me. That's why I love Paul Allen so much, because I know he cared, and he spent his money to make sure that the Blazers were the best that he could possibly make them. Now, it doesn't mean he batted 1,000 or every decision was perfect, but you know what? I'll give you a lot of leeway when I know your heart's in the right place and you're doing everything you can to win. That's what I'm looking for.
I still would be a little worried about, and obviously we're going to find this out more once the sale becomes official, assuming it does. But I would still, I would add a third thing to your list. Obviously, both of those things that you brought up are very important things for owners, arguably the two most important things to your point. The third one I would add to the list is doesn't come in and immediately try to reinvent the wheel and try to and just think that they know better than the people that have already been doing it. Because I mean, this guy doesn't have any basketball experience. Like he owns a hockey team, and obviously he's had a lot of success in that regard, but they're two different sports, they're two different leagues with two different rule structures. So I would just my concern would be that somebody would come in and is just super overzealous about it, like maybe Matt Ishbia was in Phoenix, where he's immediately going to just overhaul everything, and it's just going to be like a lot of whiplash. And you also don't know necessarily, just because a guy has a lot of passion and a guy who spends a lot of money that doesn't always equate to success. So my hope would be that early on, he at least takes the first year that he's in charge and just kind of assesses things and doesn't just make these huge sweeping changes. That would be where I would push back.
Yeah, and that's what I would hope. I would like to think that's what I would do. Like if I were to buy a team and I had no experience in that particular sport, I guess what I would do is go on a fact-finding mission. I'd want to talk to a lot of different people who have been around the game for a long period of time and just listen and try to learn from these people who have done it over a long period of time. It reminds me of Eric Spoelstra. When he got LeBron and Bosh to join Dwayne Wade, he did something that was unique. He actually went on a tour where he went around the country talking to many different great coaches in college football, NFL, all these different sports, Major League Baseball. And his whole objective with the tour that he went on was to come up with a plan for how he was going to handle the three big stars, because he was smart enough to realize that once he got those three guys added to a squad or playing together, that the expectations were going to be, sky high, and rightfully so. And then basically the simple version of what he came back with after talking to all these coaches was these three guys, Wade, Bosh, LeBron, are the stars. They're the ones that are making all the money. I'm going to put the onus on them to, power the entire team, to lead the way, to set the pace, and we'll lean on them as we continue to move forward. That's what he came up with. And I thought that was a good way to approach it, because even though Spoelstra's been around the game a long time, if you go in there thinking, I got this, I got Wade, LeBron, and Bosh, I'm good. But he didn't. He stepped back and talked to different people who had dealt with many stars before, and I thought that was smart.
Yeah, that's the thing that we're going to kind of have to wait and see on with this new ownership group, because there are some ownership groups where, like, you look at the absolute best case scenario, somebody like Steve Ballmer, who has all the money in the world, buys the Clippers, and he's spent money on everything as far as coaching staff, facilities. He built that new arena. He doesn't really get that involved in basketball decisions. He just kind of lets people do, the people who are experts on that stuff do what they do. And then on the other side, like I said, you've got Matt Ishbia, who came in and immediately just shook everything up. And now that team is that organization is in a much worse place than they were when he first came in. So there's kind of a thing where you don't want to go too far in one side. You don't want an owner that's so hands off that they just don't care about what's going on. But you also don't want an owner that thinks that they come in and immediately think that they know everything, and that the people whose job it is to be a coach or be a GM just has no idea what they're doing, and this other way is better.
Yeah, so I'm excited. I think it's going to be fun to see how it plays out. But like we learned with Boston, I guess what fans can expect is that the process of confirming this is going to take some time, right?
Yeah.
It's not a quick process.
Yeah, the news of the Celtics sale came out in March, and it just got approved by the Board of Governors in August. So that's a 5-month timeline. If it's like 5 to 6 months, that's usually how long. Obviously, the Minnesota thing is a little bit of a different thing, because there was all that weird arbitration stuff between Glenn Taylor and the A-Rod Mark Lowry group. That took a lot longer. But usually it seems like it's probably like a 5 to 8 month thing. So I would say probably the earliest, and this is just kind of me, putting things together. This isn't like hard reporting that like this is when the vote is going to happen. But I would say probably the earliest that happens is around the All-Star break, but it could take all of this next season. So I would say for Blazer fans, I would guess that like right now, for the most part, this coming season, which obviously we're going to talk about coming up because we just got the schedule, so there's a lot to dive into. But this next season, I would imagine, is probably going to be pretty status quo, and you're not going to start seeing a lot of the changes related to this ownership group coming in until probably next offseason.
All right, up next, is Sean Highkin going to be able to survive having a game on Thursday before All-Star Weekend. We'll find out next on the Rip City Drive. All right, Sean, I don't know how you digest an NBA schedule, but we got it today. So when you first get the schedule in hand, what are you looking for? What are the things that you're wanting to know first when it comes to the Trailblazers?
I look at, for me personally, I look at, where the season starts, whether the opener is at home, which it was last year, and it is going to be again this year, or if they open somewhere else, like 2 years ago they opened in LA against the Clippers, and I immediately booked that trip, and I was like, I have to be at Scoot Henderson's debut, his NBA debut. So first I look at that. I look at the last game of the season and hope that that's at home because the team usually likes to do their exit interviews that day.
Yes.
Assuming they miss the playoffs, which this year I think their hope is that they're not doing exit interviews on the last day of the regular season. So I look at that. And then I look at, what is the longest road trip? And this year, the last couple of years, it was 7, which is a marathon. That's a pretty insane road trip. This year, they have 3 different 5-game road trips, but 5 is the longest that they have. And then I look at, when are certain guys I want to see coming to town? Like I want to see Wemby, when are the Spurs coming to town? I want to see, Jokic, when are the Nuggets coming to town? When are the Lakers coming to town? Now, especially now that they've got Luka as well as LeBron. Like I just kind of look at that stuff. Obviously, the last 2 years, I would look at, when are the Bucks coming to town? Because when's Dame going to be back? So, but obviously, that's not really a factor this year. So, I just, by the time I really like digest it, I've kind of gone over it a bunch of different times because what I do is I get the schedule. First thing I do is I put all of the games into my Apple Calendar on my computer. And then I go into the draft that I have on my site and put them all in there. So by that time, I've like written the whole thing out twice, like in 2 different places. And by then, I kind of have an idea of what it is, and then I can be like, okay, well, maybe this trip makes some sense to do. Maybe this trip, all that kind of stuff. So it's just like it was like a whole day thing to even process it yesterday, and then you add into that, yesterday was so chaotic anyway with the sale that,
Yeah, a lot of stuff going on. That's what I like to do. I go through and I input each game into the calendar on my phone because that's my, Bible that I live by day to day to know what I've got going on. So I can step back and look at the weeks and the months when I'm going to be extra busy, when I'm going to have a bit of a breather. And those are the things that jump out at me. But you mentioned the 2 teams. It's nice. Game 2 on Friday, October 24th. The Warriors are going to be here in town, which is nice.
Yep.
And then shortly thereafter, on November 3rd, the Lakers are in town on a Monday night. Last year was unfortunate because the 2 times that the Lakers were in town, we didn't get to see Luka play in either one of those games.
Right.
The second one coming at the end of the season, so that made sense. But he got nicked up in that first game. But now you get the Lakers in the first half, and then you get the Lakers again in January. A good chance we'll have a chance or have the opportunity to see Luka and LeBron playing together, which is going to be cool.
The first one was especially annoying because it was like one of the first games after, it might have been the first game after the All-Star break.
Yeah, it was.
And so this was like a couple weeks after the trade.
Yes.
And Luka was still like, he had just made his return because when they made the trade, he was still out for a couple weeks with a calf injury. He made his return like right before the All-Star break. And, he played the night before. He played the night after. He looked fine. That game, they just decided he was resting. I mean, the thing that's nice for people in Portland is that LeBron, obviously the end of the season last year was a little bit of a different thing because they were just like resting all their guys. But usually LeBron will always play in Portland and not have that be one of the games that he sits out to rest because people at Nike want to see him play in person.
Mm-hmm.
So we've always been kind of lucky in that regard. But yes, I would like it if I always like it when as many of these guys can actually play in person as possible.
The other thing that jumped out at me too, like I think last year, what was it, 1 nationally televised game?
Yeah, just the last 2 years, the only nationally televised games they've had were when Dame came back. When actually the really funny one was the summer of 23 when the trade didn't happen until like the day before training camp. They put the game between Portland and Miami on TNT because that whole summer everybody just assumed that he was eventually going to get traded to the Heat. when the trade happened with the Bucks, they immediately dropped the game against the Heat from TNT, and then ESPN picked up the game against the Bucks, so they put that on TV. And then last year, the Bucks game was the only one that was on TV. But now, 8 national games, which is the most they've had since the 21-22 season when they had 9.
Yeah, I think it's going to be terrific. So one of those games, the first on NBC, which is early in the season, November 18th against the Phoenix Suns. 8 o'clock tip time at Moda Center. So for the first time ever, we're getting these NBC tip times at 8 o'clock on the West Coast, which is something I've never experienced. The latest tip time we've had in Portland has been 7:30.
And back when I was on the Bulls beat, there was this one time when this would have been when LeBron was still in Miami and this was the last year of the LeBron Bosh Wade Heat, and the Heat played the Bulls in Chicago, and for whatever reason, it was the second TNT game, and so they played. That was like an 8:30 local tip in Chicago. And obviously, since it was a TNT game, when it says it's an 8:30 tip, that means it starts closer to 8:50 because they have all the pregame stuff whenever it's a TNT game.
Yep,
that was tough. I don't like these 8 p.m. I mean, it's great for the team that they're going to have more national exposure, especially since most of these, one of their games is on Peacock, which is a streamer. One of them is on Amazon Prime, which is a streamer. But the other 6 are on NBC, which is like NBC, like Channel 8 on most over the air here in Portland. Like, it's great for the teams. They're going to be for a lot of their national games are going to just be on network TV that you can get with the same antenna that you use to watch Blazer games on KUNP. But 8 p.m. start time, I don't love it.
I'm with you on that. 8 o'clock's a little bit late for my body clock, but we'll have to adjust to that. So you get the first one against Phoenix. They have a game on Prime against the Clippers on December 26th, the day after Christmas. They have an NBC game against Dallas on Monday, December 29th. That also an 8 o'clock tip. At Golden State on January 13th, 8 o'clock tip, NBC. A game on Peacock at Boston, and that's going to be a 5 o'clock tip time on the West Coast. I like that. Get a chance to play in Boston, get some national exposure.
Mm-hmm.
More people around the country will be watching that game because the game will tip off a little bit earlier. So another good opportunity for the Trailblazers there. And then they finish up another game against Phoenix, Minnesota, and the Clippers. And I'm with you. Like, I want these young guys on the Blazers to have an opportunity, and they're going to have 8 opportunities this year compared to 1 last year, where more eyeballs will get a chance to see some of the young guys that we're excited about, like Tamani Kamara, one of the best on-ball defenders in the NBA without question. A lot of people don't know who he is because they haven't had a chance to see him play. Denny Avdia, coming off his best year in the NBA, great all-around player. And then we got Scoot and Shaden, 2 guys who we're hoping will really start to emerge this year, and now more eyeballs will get a chance to see them.
I mean, the thing that's really hanging over all of this is Young Hansen. Like, that's the thing where, like, honestly, when you look at this list of, like, what the national games are, it's like, NBC has them a bunch, and then, like, there's one on Peacock, one on Amazon. I'm surprised ESPN doesn't have any of their games, because I would think, especially because like ESPN has the relationship with Tencent, so like they're very tied in with the Chinese market. You would think that ESPN would see how big it was at Summer League and just want to get in on that. But and then, as far, also to that point, to the Young Hansen point, and just a lot of the interest there. The one matchup that I'm surprised that the Blazers could have had on one of these national things that they didn't was against Denver, because on draft night there was all the Chinese Jokic stuff, and then like Hansen has said that like Jokic is his favorite player and he wants his autograph, and Jokic had that that viral video of like him reacting to him saying that and saying that like I hope he he can have an autograph if he plays badly against me or whatever. That one maybe you could have put on national TV one of the 4 times that they play.
Yeah. Well, I think it's safe to say that the Trailblazers now will become the most popular team in China, right?
Oh, God. Yeah. I mean,
they'll surpass the Warriors, the Lakers, all the other big brands over there because of Hansen.
Yeah. I mean, just think about what the Rockets were when Yao Ming was playing there. Yeah. And now you add in, because most of Yao's career was before social media and before, everything was as connected and as, focused on that type of stuff as it is now. And now it's just going to go to a completely different level. Assuming Hansen has, has a good NBA career, I don't even think he has to be a star necessarily. If he's even just like a good rotation player, that's just going to be massive.
We're talking to Sean Highkin, Trailblazer insider from Rose Garden Report, taking a look at the new Trailblazer schedule. The other obvious things that jump out at me for the first time in what seems like forever, longest road trip, 5 games, and they finish up the year like they start the season at home. 7 of the final 10 games are at home. So if you got a team that's battling for playoff position, no extended road trips, and 7 of your final 10 at home, that sets up nicely for a young team.
The other thing is, I mean, and this is kind of a little bit of a trade-off because obviously, the early part of the schedule is pretty tough, but their last game against Oklahoma City, who I think most, defending champions, I think most people agree is the best team in the league, certainly the best team in the West. The last game out of the 4 that they play each other is on New Year's Eve. So after the new calendar year, they are completely done playing the Thunder. So once, assuming they get through that, the October, November, December in one piece, they no longer have to play the Thunder. I mean, there's some trade-offs to that. Like they have Denver a little bit later in the schedule. They have Minnesota a couple times late in the schedule. But for the most part, a lot of the best teams in the West, they play early and not late. Like I know they have Brooklyn a couple times late. They have Utah late. They have Sacramento a couple times late. Like if they can get through the first couple months of the season, then I think their push for whatever they want to do this season, like playoff play and whatever the case may be, is not unrealistic.
Sean Hyken in studio right now. Okay, All-Star Weekend, it's in L.A. Is it in Intuit Dome?
It's at Intuit, yeah.
Okay.
I'll be there. I'm going.
I know. You're excited about that. The problem is with you, and I love it, you put it out on social today, for selfish reasons, you're upset that the Blazers are playing a Thursday night game before All-Star Weekend. That cramps your style a little bit.
Well, I'm going to have to miss that one. I mean, it's also against Utah, so that's not like – but, yeah, that is kind of tough that it's, they're like they have a Wednesday, Thursday back-to-back in Minnesota and Utah.
Yeah.
On the last 2 days before All-Star. And the problem with that is like a lot of the reason for somebody like me to go to All-Star is a lot of the media availability stuff. And then there's also the Tech Summit, which I went to for the first time this past year in San Francisco. And, that's a really hard thing to get into. I finally got into that. But that stuff is all Friday morning. So if the team you cover is playing on the Thursday night, that's tough.
Yeah.
But again, it's in Utah. So it's like, if there's any game that you can feel okay about missing to fly into LA a day early, I think that one people will survive.
You're also going to make the trip to their first preseason game down in San Francisco against the Warriors. I didn't even think about it being such a smart game to go to, but Young Hanson's first NBA game.
Yeah.
And you made another good point, and I live down there. I know this. A huge Chinese population in the San Francisco area. So I'll be curious to see what Chase Center looks like that night with the balance between Warrior fans and Young Hanson fans. They'll be loaded up, ready to watch and play, excited.
Well, for that reason, I mean, but both because there's a huge Chinese population in the Bay Area and because, like, Steph Curry is just one of the most popular guys, all over the world.
Absolutely.
Right now, ever since, Yao's career has been over, the most popular team in China, from what I understand, for the last 10 years has been Golden State. And now you have, their first preseason game being against Yang Hansen, who is the most exciting, Chinese prospect to come into the league since at least probably Yi Jianlan, right? Was the last time, because Yi Jianlan, I know his career never really ended up panning out, but he was a lottery pick, so there was excitement around him at the time. So that just felt like when I booked that one like a couple weeks ago when I first saw the preseason schedule. I was just like, I need to be at that. Usually like the season opener is one that I make it a priority to travel to, but they're playing their first game of the season at home this year, so I don't need to necessarily do anything there. But that one I felt like was important to be at.
Anything else jump out at you in regards to the schedule?
I like that they. So I like that there's only they only have the 5-game road trip, because those 7 gamers are tough, especially if you're not traveling with the team, because then you're away from the team for like 2 whole weeks. So I don't have to deal with that. I like that.
All right, the Trailblazers win total for the upcoming season has been set at 33.5 wins. Like, I would pound the over on that. What do you think about that? 33.5.
I would go probably slight over on. I think they'll probably end. If you made me predict right now, I think they probably end up with a similar win total to what they had last year, the 36. but it's not going to be so like segmented out where they were so bad at the beginning of the season and so good at the end of the season. I think it's probably going to be like a normal 36, 37 win season. And maybe that's enough to get the 10 seed or the 9 seed. Maybe it's not.
Yeah, what's going to be – here's how I see the season playing out. I think – and this is one of the reasons why I was such an advocate of, Chauncey Billups coming back. But now, same coach, same system, young players continuing to develop. So what I'm anticipating is the defense that we saw in the second half of the season, I think they'll be able to kick off the year playing much better defense, and they're going to be able to win games defensively. And the reason why that's critical is that, teams go through offensive slumps on a regular basis because the schedule is so brutal. But when you can rely and be able to lean on your defense, it can keep you close. It can manufacture points for you and allow you to overcome those slumps. So I'm excited to see what they're going to be able to do defensively coming off of last year from the beginning of the season up until the end. That, to me, is pretty exciting.
Yeah, I still have some concerns about how they're going to score and who's going to be, the number one scorer on the team. Because for as much as Anthony Simons was clearly not going to be a long-term fit on this team, and it was probably the right decision to move on from him, that's the one thing that he's elite at. And I don't know who's going to fill that void necessarily, on this current roster. Maybe Shaden Sharp takes another leap and becomes that guy on a night-to-night basis, but, we haven't seen that yet. So we'll see.
I mean, that's the guy I would look to. You and I have talked about Shaden.
Yeah.
He's got the highest ceiling of all the guys on the floor, especially on that end of the floor because of his natural abilities. They just need to see it emerge.
Yeah, which if it's going to happen, it's kind of got to happen this soon because they got a contract decision to make on him too.
All right, we'll come back. Sean Hyken is in studio. You can reach out 503-248-0620. The schedule is out. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, Heiken, here are some analytics for you. Taylor Swift's New Heights episode earned over 12.7 million views in its first 24 hours on YouTube. It's the show's most viewed episode ever. I know that's not a surprise, but it's just amazing. Like certain people, like she is a white hot superstar. So anywhere she goes, people follow.
I know of people who went to see her on the last tour, and
On the Eras tour.
and they were able to get tickets for face value. But a couple of times, out of curiosity, I went to look at just like what they were going for in Seattle, and it was like $1,800 to even get in the building. So I don't know. I don't know if that's somebody I'd pay that much money to see, but that's it's
big time.
Yeah.
Hey, Shacker, who the Michael Penix Jr. messed up graphic, was that on ESPN? What network was that on? Do you know?
It was on some local news.
Local news. They, instead of having it be WTOC.
Is that in Atlanta?
Is that in Atlanta? It must be. So Michael Penix Jr., they spelled his last name penis.
Sure.
And like, you can't mess it up that bad. So someone did that on purpose.
I have to feel like that's probably not the first time that's ever happened to him in his life.
Yeah, I would imagine it happens all the time. But you get these people, these probably interns or some low-level staffer that's like, oh, I'll play a joke. I'll put this up there. That's why they do it. Or they do it on purpose because they want to become, social media, have something to go viral. That's crazy. But I would imagine Michael Penix has probably had people make fun of his name enough over the course of time in locker rooms or whatever.
Oh, yeah, he's got to be used to it.
He's used to it. How was 9 Inch Nails?
Really good.
See, Shacker, you should have gone, man. You didn't go, and you missed out on a good show. Don't you regret that?
I've seen 9 Inch Nails 5 times already.
So have I, but this was the first time I'd seen the full arena production. I've seen them a bunch of times, but it was always like outdoors, or at festivals. This was the first time I saw the full, indoor production with the light show and stuff.
How was the arena production?
It was awesome.
Yeah, you missed out on that one, Shacker.
Well, maybe I'll go see Monster Truck this weekend at Motorcycle.
With the glow-in-dark trucks.
Yeah, the Hot Wheels.
Yeah, the Hot Wheels. Go jump on that. All right, Sean Heiken is in studio as the Trailblazers schedule is dropped. I was told by someone yesterday that, the Blazers are really excited about the new, how do you describe it? Like, it's not a Jumbotron. But
video scoreboard?
The video scoreboard, which is going to have a brand new, a mega screen for the replays and stuff, but then also you got the end zone screens for stats and different types of details. I was asked, I do know that the hustle board will still be included in the new screens that are going to be at Moda Center, the stats that Paul Allen loved so much. But I'm excited to see it, but I haven't been inside the arena, but I want to check it out. But you've probably heard the same thing. They're pretty excited about this.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet either. As we said, I was just at the arena a week ago for 9 Inch Nails, but obviously that stuff's all covered up, so I haven't actually physically seen it. I've just seen the renderings that they put out when they first announced that it was going to happen. I do hope that they take the original hustle boards and do something with them. Maybe, like, put them out in the lobby.
Yeah.
So that fans can, like, go and take a picture with, next to, like, the original hustle boards. Like, because they've got them. Like, what else are they going to do with them? I think that would be something that would be cool to do with it. But, no, I definitely think it's overall going to be a good thing for the arena that they upgrade that stuff.
So what's next in line for you? So the draft is over. Free agency is over.
Yeah.
All the big news is out. The schedule's dropped. So what are some of the things that you try to get done or focus on between now and the start of camp with Media Day coming up on September 29th?
I've got a pretty cool series coming starting next week that's going to run through the final 6 weeks of the offseason.
And what's going to be the focus of this series at Rose Garden Report?
So this is not an original concept at all, but it is 25 years into this century. Many outlets are doing, top 25 of something to commemorate that. Like that's been done. That's not a original concept. My initial thought when I thought about doing something like this was, oh, I should just do, the top 25 Blazers players of the last 25 years. That was originally my thought.
Yeah.
But then I was thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? Like, A, that's predictable. B, like, yeah, okay, obviously Dame's going to be number one. Like, what do I have to say about that that's interesting? So what I decided to do instead, and this is going to start on Monday and then go Monday, Wednesday, Friday for the next 6 weeks until the start of the of training camp. I'm going to look at the top 25 individual Blazers player performances of the last 25 years, but I'm going to limit it to 1 game per player. So there's only going to be 1 Dame game on the list. There's only going to be 1 LaMarcus Aldridge game on the list. There's only going to be 1 Brandon Roy game on the list. So that helps. It would be kind of boring if like 4 players took up like half the list. And it also kind of allows me to kind of look at just some random outlier games from guys who normally would not make this type of list. Like just as a tease, Nick Stauskas may or may not be involved somewhere on the list.
I remember that game. Will playoff games be
a
part of it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
A lot of the top games are going to be playoff games. So a lot of the top ones shouldn't be that hard to guess or predict.
Well, the biggest thing I'm thinking about is like, what game will Dame's performance be? Because he's had many to choose from.
That shouldn't be a hard one to figure out either. It's not the 71-point game.
Okay. Well, my thought might be if it's going to be postseason, the Oklahoma City Game 5.
That might be it. I don't know.
Okay.
You'll have to subscribe to find out.
But you would say that
I don't think that's a bad guess.
That game would be nominated.
I don't think it's a bad guess.
Okay. I'm trying to think who else. Rodney Hood's had a couple of moments that could be on the list at some point.
He might be involved. He definitely might be involved. Like there's definitely some.
Nurkic has had a couple of possibilities. Marcus Camby has had a couple of possibilities.
You're naming guys that might be on the list. There's some interesting. Some of them are super obvious. I don't think you're that off base with the Dame one, and then Brandon Roy against the Mavericks in 2011 in the playoffs. Like that's obviously going to be in there. And then
I'm trying to think, was the Stauskas game, was that against the Lakers?
It was LeBron's first ever game as a Laker.
That's right.
And
Stauskas went wild.
Yeah.
That was a great night though.
Yeah.
But I just remember Marcus Camby. I can't remember the game off the top of my head, but he had one game where he went wild with a bunch of rebounds. And Moda Center was Marcus Camby, and he was getting the chant going, and it was awesome.
You may or may not be spoiling some stuff on the.
I'm just trying to think back.
But no, we're on the same wave.
Okay,
That's
good.
why it was fun to there's different. I mean, and there are just do you remember Andre Miller's 52-point game? Because that's on there. That's going to probably make an appearance. I think there's a good chance of that happening.
That came in the playoffs against Dallas?
No, that was in the regular season against Dallas.
Oh, okay. So against Dallas, I got the team right.
You got the team right, but it was regular season. But it's still, Andre Miller 52-point game. That's got to be on there.
I would say if I were going to select a B-Roy game, it would be the Game 4 comeback against Dallas.
Yeah, that's obviously got to be it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. What's fun, I like the creativity of the list because what it's going to do, we know about Dame and LaMarcus and B-Roy, but what's going to be neat, it's the Nick Stauskases of that list that I'm most excited about.
Like Brian Grant is on here. Brian Grant makes an appearance on here. There's a couple of guys from there's a couple from this past season.
Does Arvydas Sabonis make an appearance?
No, because I don't think he only played 2 seasons in this century, and he was pretty much done by then.
Yeah.
The one other guy that I really wanted to find a way to include, but just couldn't find a way to justify it is Rudy Fernandez. There's no, what is the Rudy Fernandez game that you would put on there? I don't think there really is one that justifies it.
The only thing I can remember or what sticks out the most is when Trevor Ariza nearly killed him.
Yeah, I'm not putting that on the list.
No, don't.
But anyway, yeah, this coming Monday, Wednesday, and starting this coming Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that's rolling out every week between now and camp.
Well, great. I can't wait to read it. That's cool, man.
Yeah.
All right, Sean Highkin, Rose Garden Report, our Trailblazer Insider. Dude, thanks for coming in, man. That was fun.
Yeah, this is good.
All right, we'll keep things rolling. We got a lot of good things, including community ownership. We'll get to that at 5:20 on the Rip City Drive. Your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, 5 o'clock. Chad here. What's up, my friends? The NBA schedule is out. The Trailblazers will open up their season on Wednesday, October 22nd against the Minnesota Timberwolves. That tip-off will be at 7. And then the Golden State Warriors are going to be in town on Friday, the 24th. Portland will be featured 8 times on national television, 6 games on NBC, 1 on Peacock, and the other on Prime. Longest road trip, just 5 games. You can always podcast our show on our free iHeartRadio app. Sean Hyken just joined me in studio to discuss. From the NFL, head coach Sean McVay with the Rams says Matthew Stafford will get a workout in on Saturday. The bad disc in his back has prevented him from practicing thus far in camp. Week 2 of the preseason will launch tomorrow. The Hawks are going to host the Chiefs. Kickoff from Lumen Field at 7 o'clock. Mariners fall today at Baltimore 5-3 on their current 9-game road trip. That's back-to-back losses for the M's. All right, big thanks to Sean Hyken, our Trailblazer Insider, for stopping by. You can join us on YouTube. Just go to youtube.com and pull up our homepage, Rip City Radio 620. We stream all of our local shows. You can see what it looks like inside the studio. You can make fun of my horrendous mug and the gray that I have coming in. You can also podcast, listen live on our free iHeartRadio app. If you want to call the show, 503-248-0620. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. And you can find me on X at Chad and Rip City. Michael Shacker is with me. Hope you're enjoying your Thursday out there. I think we have a little bit of rain coming in. I was worried that it might impact my desire to play golf tomorrow morning, but I was looking at the 24-hour forecast, and it's changed just a slight bit. So we got a little bit of rain coming in the early morning hours, but then all of a sudden, like at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, it's going to be cloudy but dry with a low chance of rain. And then the rain won't come back in until later on tomorrow evening. But then it's going to get nice once we get back into the weekend. I'm just trying to enjoy and soak up as much of this summertime as I can before we all have to get back to the real life, which is work. Then next week, so Saturday, Sunday, partly sunny, temperatures around 78. And then getting into next week, Monday, 79. And then nothing but sunshine Tuesday through Saturday with temperatures anywhere from the low 80s up to the high 80s. And that sunshine will continue all the way through Thursday, the 28th, which happens to be my birthday.
Can I interrupt you with something?
You may.
The Tuesday's show, we were pretty busy with the music show. We had your buddies in here, Rich Patterson, Curtis Long.
Yes.
We're about to give away Hops tickets. Hops tickets Tuesday.
Oh, we did?
Yeah, so let's do Hop tickets Thursday for a 4-pack for Friday's game.
Is this for tomorrow's game?
Excuse me, Saturday's game. My bad. It's Saturday's game, a 4-pack for Saturday. They're playing the Everett Aqua Sox. 4-pack.
All right. Well, we'll do it right now. Thank you, Michael. We have a 4-pack of tickets for the Hillsborough Hops coming up on Saturday. And this is for your opportunity to sit in the Rip City Radio row. So if you'd like a 4-pack of tickets for baseball, courtesy of me, call now. We'll take the first caller, 503-248-0620. That telephone number is 503-248-0620. And look, all you have to do is make a phone call. I'm not collecting money. I'm not putting you through the ringer. Just make a phone call right now to 503-248-0620. And you'll get a 4-pack of tickets for the Hops for the game this Saturday. And the great thing about going out to Hillsborough right now, not only you get a chance to take in some baseball, But you can get a look at the new stadium, which is almost done. Completion date is coming up in December, and you get a chance to watch some baseball. That sounds like a pretty good idea if you ask me. 503-248-0620. I want to hear from a Hops fan. Do you like baseball? Do you like hops? Would you like to have a beer while watching the Hops on a beautiful Saturday afternoon? 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. 503-248-0620. Now, I mentioned that New Heights podcast with Jason and Travis Kelce. This number still blows me away. Taylor Swift's New Heights episode earned over 12.7 million views in its first 24 hours on YouTube. That's just YouTube. That doesn't include the other platforms. And by the way, it's the show's most viewed episode ever. I just can't believe the star power that she has. It's very impressive. But she talked about learning different coverages. I love hearing people that aren't experienced with football talk about learning the cover 2 or the cover 3, different coverages. It's awesome.
We're talking about cover 2, cover 4, cover 0, man cover. We're learning. I continue to learn.
Maybe somebody else that even knows what those coverages are.
Yeah, I'm not ready to be an analyst right now, but give me 16 months.
Wow. So she's already on top of that. I thought she did a heck of a job on the podcast. She also talked about how she used to think football was played.
I thought that the quarterbacks.
I mean, that's how you played it on the playground growing up. So I understand if you hadn't
No, you don't understand. I thought it was like Jared Goff is here and Josh Allen's here. And they're going to be like, they blow a whistle and then they go at each other and they're like, and it's like, who's going to win?
That's actually.
I would love to see Jared Goff play some defense. Let's see Jared Goff on defense.
I've got some ideas. I've got some thoughts.
There you go. She was great. I would encourage you to check it out. She's got a very good personality. She speaks pretty open. She's very transparent. She pulled out her album and talked about the work that she put into that. I mean, she wrote the 12 songs that are on the album while she was on the Eras tour. But you can see with her desire and love of, music, but that desire to create new music. She's a performer. She wants to create, and she's very happy about the album. But I thought she was terrific. I mean, she is, like we talk about Dame or Steph Curry, some of these global superstars that, are very real. That's what Taylor Swift comes across like. Pretty real and normal for being a global superstar. And she's big time. No question about it. All right, I want to play this for you, a couple of pieces of audio. First off, Tony Grossi, who is, a big media type in Cleveland, he got into an awkward exchange with Shedeur Sanders. And Shedeur said, Tony, I hope you have something positive to say about me. And this was in a video that was posted to Deion Sanders Jr.'s YouTube account. You only say negative stuff about me. And I'm like, I ain't done nothing to you. That is what Shedeur had to say. And Tony was on the Colin Cowherd show and was asked about that exchange. What caused Shedeur to be upset with him?
So what did you say that had him all riled up?
I don't know if there's anything specific. It's just that since he arrived, I've treated him as just one of the 90 players. He's got these incredible legion of fans who think the Cleveland Browns season is all about Shedeur Sanders this year. And I've stayed away from that mentality. Although we talk Shedeur constantly on our air, I have to be fair to, what else is going on with the team. And there have been a few things I've questioned. The first time at rookie minicamp, seeing Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders on the field together that first day, I came away and said, I understand why the Browns took Dillon Gabriel ahead of Shedeur Sanders. I thought Gabriel did some things that Sanders at that time didn't do. I'm not sure there's one smoking gun thing that I said to get him riled up. And that was the first time. We've been in this camp for 3 going on 4 weeks. And after that game was the first time he said anything to me.
All right. Here's my take on, younger athletes now that are coming into the pro sports arena. And it's different for college athletes now because a lot of them are making big money through NIL agreements. So they're going to be held to a different standard now that they're being paid. It's not like it used to be. But I think what's happened, or at least what I've seen through my time in sports, as time has gone on, and I got into this back in the late 90s when I first started covering games. And back then, there was a lot more access where you could talk to guys, you could ask questions, you could interview them after games, you could do a lot of one-on-ones in locker rooms. But over the course of time, players, whether it be college, we've seen this especially at USC with Lincoln Riley, or even in the NBA, the NFL, or NHL, access has become much more difficult with athletes. And I've seen this in college where a lot of these guys are, coddled or protected. And so that way they don't deal with media as much. They're not used to people asking questions. Some of them have not been given, big-time media training. And a lot of them have come from schools where, they were the top dog. They're not used to criticism. Or maybe the place where they played, they weren't opened up to criticism like you get in different towns or different cities, especially a place like Cleveland where the Browns are number one. They're huge, especially in these bigger media markets. And so I think what's happened when you shelter these athletes and maybe don't give them the media training or how to deal with that to a certain degree, then you wind up in situations like this. Or you have athletes that are being criticized and they don't necessarily know how to respond. And I think that can be difficult. I think also now players are a lot more empowered because they have access to social media. They can put out their own message. They can communicate with their fans. They can, communicate whatever they want through their different platforms, which is great for them. That's awesome. But I think in order to be a big-time pro, and remember, quarterback is different than any other position in sport because you are the face of the franchise. You're basically the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. You're making the big bucks. You're getting all the attention. You're leading a football team. Every player on the team is going to look to you for direction. They're going to watch your work habits, how you practice, the way you handle your business, all of that. It's critical. And if you're a quarterback, you have to understand how to communicate, how to deal with criticism, and you've got to let some of that stuff roll off your back. It's important as a quarterback. If you're a wide receiver and you want to call out Tony Grossi, it doesn't matter. Or a defensive lineman or a running back. But quarterbacks are under a microscope. So how you handle adversity, how you handle criticism, how you handle praise. How does a quarterback, the good ones, how do they normally handle praise? They deflect and give credit to their teammates. And when they're criticized, they don't fight back. They say, hey, I've got to be better. I wasn't my best. I've got a lot of work to do. I let my teammates down. There's a very humble approach in the way the franchise quarterbacks handle that. And, of course, with Shedeur, he's younger. He's maturing or learning to mature through this role. And it's going to be critical that he understands how to operate as time moves on. But calling out someone that has been, critical or someone that hasn't, blown smoke at you, you've got to just understand that criticism or people not praising you is going to be a part of the experience, and you've got to learn to deal with the right way because you are a quarterback and all eyes are going to be on you, which I'm sure he understands. All right, we'll keep things rolling. When we come back, we're going to focus in on the Trailblazers from the ownership side, and really what it comes down to is putting, power into the hands of the people to where we can possibly create something like we see in Green Bay. John Turok is going to join me, and we'll talk about the charge that he is leading here on the Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. Now, this is one area where I have to disagree with the captain, Rich Patterson. I like this era of Chicago music with David Foster, working with Peter Cetera. All right, our next guest is the founder of BuyTheBlazers.com. And he's lived in Portland for 25 years and is part of the tech industry, and he joins the show right now. Let's welcome John Turok to the Rip City Drive. John, good afternoon. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, Chad. Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
All right, a lot of things going on. We know about the announcement yesterday, but let's start with this, John. Why don't you give our listening audience maybe some background on yourself and how you came up and started the idea, the movement of BuyTheBlazers.com?
Chad, there was an announcement yesterday. Frankly, I'm shocked. I had no idea. No, I'm only kidding. So thank you. I appreciate it. As you mentioned, I started in tech a long time ago, back in the internet bubble in New York City, but I've lived here in Portland for 25 years. It's been a lifetime. I'm still in tech. I've been with a number of startups that have gone all the way, IPO and acquisition. I wasn't the CEO or founder, but, I had my slice of the pie. There were some good days. Yeah. I started BuyTheBlazers.com about a little over 2 months ago. I believe Jody Allen formally announced the sale of the team, that the team was for sale on May 13th. I probably started around June 1st. The idea came to me in just wondering, was anybody doing this? Was anybody taking a community angle to buy the Blazers? I couldn't find anything. And I said, you know what? I normally dial in my plans on business very well. I's dotted, T's crossed. On this one, I just put up the website in about a day and a half and pressed the button and kind of followed my nose and forged ahead.
Well, what was the reaction initially when you put it out there, when people from the community start to reach out to you?
I was happy, thankful, and kind of gratified that people were on the same page and also wanted to do this. We started taking in pledges, slow the first couple of days. And then after about, a week or so, we had a few $100,000 in non-binding optional pledges and, a few hundred people. And, it really started to mushroom and people started leaning in. And I started getting, emails and calls from, investors saying, hey, what's going on? Give me some details. We can put in more, et cetera, et cetera. We're very interested. And, it's been a whirlwind over the last couple of months from there.
Well, let's talk about this. We see it in Green Bay with the Packers, obviously being community-owned, which is unique unto itself. But what are some of the benefits you think? Because I understand the value of what sports brings to a community, but what are the values you get from community ownership in a sports team?
Sure. And, just shout out to Green Bay. Over 100 years ago, they went public. And, look, they've had a wonderful, run over there. And it seems like their community is beyond reproach as far as engaged. The benefits are multiple. One, there's a traditional ROI, return on investment, for investors. And when I say investors, that can be $10 or it can be $10 million, as far as our effort goes. We also, this is really the important part here, in addition to community ownership, which gives us a quote unquote seat at the table, if you will. For example, the Green Bay Packers have voting rights as their shareholders have voting rights. Would that be a case here? I don't think so. But at least we'd have a voice. I would be a representative, if you will, of our group. The other big thing is that we want to give half the earnings from this annually back to the community to fund charities, nonprofits, et cetera. As you may recall, Paul Allen, said in his will that the profit from the sale should go to philanthropic endeavors. The profit from the sale of the Blazers should go to philanthropic endeavors. We just want to continue that wonderful mantra, on an ongoing basis. We're talking to John Turok, who is behind BuyTheBlazers.com. So with the announcement yesterday that Tom Dundon has agreed to purchase the Trailblazers for $4.3 billion, one thing that was interesting in some of the reports, the early reporting, is that
he's also going to be looking for other investors to step up. So do you see that as an opportunity, even though you have a majority owner in Dundon with his group, with the minority ownership whereby the Blazers can step up and give that representation like you were talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. And first off, look, welcome to Tom Dundon and the whole group there to the Portland community. Congratulations on buying the team. We're excited for the team to stay, of course. You know, we're passionate fans. We're all a tingle over here. So, you know, indeed, Tom wants more local investment, as he was quoted. Buy the Blazers is pretty much that by definition inherently, right? You know, we're bringing in regional community fans, inviting more people, investors to get on board with us, buytheblazers.com. And, you know, what we're helping to do, at least in my eyes, is lock in a generational fan. You know, for example, you know, parents of young kids, they put in a little money, you know, let's say it's $100, just taking it off the top of my head. And they end up, because of that, being more engaged. And they go to a couple more games, you know, in the season. So that ticket sales help the team, of course. And they bring their kids. And they bring their kids to a couple more games. And they're watching a few more games on TV, listening to them on the radio, etc. You know, this now gets the child involved in the Blazers. You know, we're talking about a generational lock-in here, you know, that can last decades and decades and decades. You know, so, you know, I hope that helps, and I hope that answered the question.
No, it does. And that's interesting to me because, and you know this, the relationship between team and community here in Portland, between the Blazers and everyone in Rip City, it's unique and different than every other place in the NBA. And this is something that took place, you know, since 1977 when the team won the championship. That connection between team and community, and the Trailblazers have always been great in the community. But there's a special relationship there, and I think it's part of what makes Portland unique. But it's the fact that it's, you know, the Blazers have been here for so long, and they've, you know, it's the only, you know, obviously the Timbers jumped on board, but for the longest time it was the only professional sports team. So it seems like it seems like the concept would fit this environment that we have here in Portland very well.
Absolutely agreed, man. It's, you know, we are community here, right? You know, I mean, that's our, you know, our main export, if you will, yes, as far as, you know, product goes, you know, at least as I feel. And, you know, I think if we can spread that community feel more throughout sports in general, to me, this is a good thing. You know, we're helping people. That's why this came about. And, you know, as far as I see it, you know, there's nothing better than putting others in front of yourself. And, you know, that makes the world a better place for everybody.
We're talking to John Turock here on the RipCityDrive. You know, you've been out here for 25 years. You grew up in New York. Were you a big sports fan growing up? Were you like a Yankees, Giants fan, or were you Jets and Mets? Like, what teams did you follow when you were young?
You know, don't hold it against me too much, okay? You know, yes, you can hold it against me a little. You know, Mets, you know, Jets. I was also a Steelers fan. They were great when I was a kid. So there's that. You know, Knicks as well. You know, and Islanders. They were also good growing up. So, you know, that was one thing, you know, I was a kid. It was growing up. It was sports. It was, you know, very prevalent. And, you know, as things are in New York.
So, John, what can fans do right now? Like, if you go to buytheblazers.com, if you want more information, can I invest right now? Like, what's the situation? What are you asking people to do?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Signing up is great. You know, name and email. That's awesome. If you want to put in a non-binding optional pledge, anybody can do that. You know, we're tallying that up. I think the more that of those two things, sign-ups and optional pledges that we can get, you know, it makes it more of a robust conversation when we, you know, approach, you know, any larger investors or, you know, the group, the ownership group, etc.
And then how, like, when will you approach Mr. Dundon on your idea? And how does that conversation go? How do you try to sell that to the majority owner?
You know, we've got an email in with them, you know, waiting a reply right now. And, you know, we just sent the email yesterday afternoon, obviously, you know, when everybody found out. We found out the same way. You know, as far as how that conversation would go, you know, I would just talk with him and say hello and tell him what we're doing. Tell him we'd like to get involved. I would hope that he sees the value of it, from a monetary level and just a human level, on a community level. Again, from what I said before, it is a circular thing. The community helps the team. That helps the fans, and that helps the community. Also, let's not forget, there are brands and sponsors, to think about here. We're locking in more eyeballs for them as well. As far as I'm concerned, smart brands should get in line with the Blazers. I mean, you want to talk about Yang and 300 million NBA fans in China? I'm down with that conversation.
Yeah, no question about it. I think the biggest concern for Blazer fans through this ownership change has always been about the team remaining in Portland. The early indications, between your efforts and what we're hearing from people that are aware of the situation with the new group coming in, it sounds like they want to keep the team here in Rip City where it belongs.
Absolutely. I think that is obviously a huge thing here. It's we're on the rise, right? I mean, you want to talk about Yang and the way he tells the future with his passes. If you're watching Summer League, like he just passes people open. It's amazing. Also remember, and Chad, please correct me if I'm wrong here. I think we went 23-18 in the second half of last season.
That's right.
You project that and prorate it out to a full season. That's the play-in. We're the second youngest team in the league, and as I understand it, we're playing some great defense. It's really been intense, more lately. And hey, you know who else is the youngest team in the league and played some good defense last year?
Yeah.
The Oklahoma City Thunder.
That's right.
The NBA championships. I mean, hey, man, as far as I look at it, we've got next, So.
No, it's an exciting time. BuyTheBlazers.com is the website. It's John Two Rockers here on the Rip City Drive. All right, John, I'll give you the final word before you go. Tell people about BuyTheBlazers.com and how they can become a part of it.
Thanks, John. I really appreciate it. I just want to emphasize that we are trying to help people. The Blazers make over, at least last year, $300 million for the year. If we even had a small sliver of that pie come back to the community, as far as ownership and a quote-unquote seat at the table, if you will, that is, millions of dollars, potentially, depending on how much the slice of the pie is, annually for charities and those in need. Everything else as far as ROI on investment, that falls into place afterwards because of, the good feeling of the community and what the community does for each other. From there, we'll support the team, We're going to be locked in as investors and, and involved in that way. And it's just really a circular thing that I really think can help. And, and that's what it's about, man.
All right, John Turok. Well, John, what I want to do is when information changes and you got some updates, I want you to come back on the show.
I appreciate it, Chad. I'd love to. And, again, it's buytheblazers.com. And if anybody has any questions, they can reach out through the form on there. I'm happy to talk. And, just thanks again. Really appreciate it.
All right, John. Enjoy the night. I appreciate it.
You too, Chad. Take care of yourself now.
All right. There's John Turok. Buytheblazers.com is the website. I'm there right now. Their summary says, Buy the Blazers is mainly an effort to give back to the community. The Blazers generate over $300 million in revenue annually. Tapping into those dollars can mean tens of millions for investors, the region, and beyond. But it doesn't stop there. We will give a large percentage of the annual earnings to continually benefit charities and those in need. And it goes on to list some of the different reasons that you should support it. So you can check out the website, buytheblazers.com. And that there was John Turok. Oh, my goodness. I got this mole. It's like itching right now on the side of my back. And I scheduled an appointment to get that thing taken out of there. Someone reached out to me via instant messengers like, hey, don't mess around with the mole. And this thing, it's like it appeared out of nowhere and it's been growing rapidly. Got to get that thing cut out. Take out. Don't need it.
I have moles all over my yard.
Yeah, the moles in the
Digging up
yard are a
holes.
problem too. I would love, I was thinking about this the other night because they taunt me with their destruction of the yard. I would love to have, I wish there was a way to like lift off the top layer of your yard so you could get a glimpse of the intricate tunnel system that those little things have created. Do you set mole traps?
Nope. They're just part of the yard.
I've seen one. It's amazing, their design, how they were created. Their little paws or whatever you call them that they use to dig. It's amazing. They were created just for what they do. And it drives Puppy Shots crazy because sometimes he can hear them or smell them down below, but he can't get to them.
Oh, too bad he can't get them for you.
Now, what were you saying about your cats? You lose a cat?
Oh, yeah. Got a text that one of our cats got put down since I left the house today. So I left the house with 6 cats, and I'll go home. There'll only be 5.
Now, you take in rescue animals? Is that what you do?
Yeah, we take in rescue animals. The dog we adopted recently, we named him Doug because he looks like Douglas fir. He was in a kill shelter and had a kill date. We adopted him a day before he was going to get put down.
And how good of a dog is Doug?
He is Dino's best friend, wrestling partner.
Oh, yeah, I saw a picture. That's awesome, man. I love that you do that. Because for me, like the thought of dogs being euthanized because they don't have a home is just, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, and in the L.A. area where they have like a huge population, couldn't find an owner for him down there.
Well, I think I told you, too. My brother, he lives in Georgia. He's a park ranger. He finds young animals all the time, dogs and cats that are just dropped out in the woods and left for dead because people don't want to take care of them.
Yeah, that disgusts me that people do that. Just drop a pet in the wild. It's wrong.
Absolutely. So he takes them in. And so he's adopted multiple dogs and a couple of cats because of that. He doesn't want to see them pass, especially when you put young ones out there that have no way to protect themselves.
Yeah, and then they have to compete with the elements, something they might not even know. It's just horrible, but I've heard the story. I know it happens, but I get disgusted.
How many horses do you have?
Just 1 horse.
So give me the rundown. 1 horse, how many cats? 5
cats, 3 dogs.
All right. Anything else?
2 humans.
2 humans. How are things coming along with your project, the remodel and everything?
Oh, it's going great. We're living in the house. Just need to fix up the garage.
Okay. There's Michael Shacker. Telephone number 503-248-0620. You can always listen live and podcast on our free iHeartRadio app. And you can find me on social and jump on X. Find me there at Chad in Rip City. Telephone number here at the show is 503-248-0620. Mariners fall today by a score of 5-3. And week 2 of the NFL preseason will kick off tomorrow. And the Rip City Drive back tomorrow at 3 here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. I don't know if you saw this, but Oklahoma is doing some unique things to generate more dollars for their football program. And schools are going to have to get creative now with the amount of money that's going out to the players. So they're finding new ways to generate money. The Sooners right now are offering tickets, I believe, starting at around $345 for the Michigan game to get a seat inside the post-game press conference. I think it's genius. I've taken a couple of non-broadcasters to press conferences before, and they find the entire process fascinating. I remember one time, long time ago, back in the late 90s, I took my brother to a Trailblazer game. I got him a media pass, and so he had a chance to, go back and see the press conference, be in the locker room and stuff, and he was just blown away because he'd never seen that. But I think that's a unique way. If you want to enhance fan experience, the best way to do that is always to give more access. And that's something that people will pay for, to have access to be a part of a press conference, maybe to ask coach a question or one of the players a question. It's pretty sweet. I took I think it was back in 2019. Maybe it was 2020. I can't remember. I think it was 2019. Went down to did a weekend in Arizona with my boy Steve, and we caught a couple of college games. We also went to a Falcons Cardinals NFL game, and I got him a press pass, so we were at press row. And then after the game, we went down into the post-game press conference area. So Larry Fitzgerald, Kyler Murray, and a couple others. I think it was David Johnson, their running back, came out. And so Steve got to see that and the whole operation. He thought it was amazing. But I think access is a good way to do that. Duck fans, if they had access to a press conference or some type of, meet and greet where you get a chance to be around the players or the coaches, that's something people will pay for. The full experience, better access, being able to see how certain things operate behind the scenes. I think, people, especially if you follow a program and that's something you're into, I think people will pay for that for sure. So I like the creativity in what they're trying to accomplish there. And we're going to see other schools, jump on board and do the same types of things. Now, one thing I did want you to hear, I think, of that is absolute quality. Head coach at Northern Illinois, Thomas Hammock, you probably remember him after they beat Notre Dame last year, but he had a chance to talk about college kids and short-term sacrifice for long-term benefit. Take a listen to this. This guy here, this is a guy, Coach Hammock, that I would want one of my kids playing for because I know he's going to leave and be raised in a program that's going to develop a better man.
Yeah, to me, to be honest with you, I love the challenge. It don't bother me one bit because you know what? In life, you're going to make decisions, right? Sometimes it's going to work in your favor and sometimes it's not. I told our team the other day, we lost all these guys. Let's see who plays. So it's all good when people put it on Twitter, hey, all glory to God, I'm going in the transfer portal. Let's see if they play. How many of those guys going to play or travel or get snaps? I was going to tweet something the other day, a picture of me, and say, you know what? I enjoyed my college experience. I didn't get one dime, but the lessons I learned was more valuable than any money you can ever pay me. And I appreciate that because that is long term. People are losing the fact that this is short term. I coached in the National Football League for 5 years. 5 years, right? Don't lose focus of what the long term. Get your degree, learn valuable lessons that's going to help you in the long term of your life. That's the whole purpose. This is a transition from being a kid to a grown-up. And I hope people don't lose focus of that. Everybody's talking about everything else besides what is the most important thing for going to college. Because if you're going to college to go get a couple dollars, you might as well go get a job. This is too hard to go get a couple dollars. Learn the lessons that you need to learn to be successful in life for the next 40 to 50 years of your life. I would do it again for free, because of the things I learned. That's why I'm standing here today, because of what I learned in college. Not because of how much somebody gave me. That's what I would tell people. And parents, they need to learn that lesson too. Stop trying to live through your kids. Go teach your kids what are the things they need to learn to be successful. That's what I'm telling my kids. I don't care about no NIL, no revenue share. I can care less. You need to learn things in college to get you prepared for life, to be a father, a husband, to work, everything else. Those are the most important things. That's what people are missing, in my opinion.
How good is that? That's pretty awesome. That's Coach Hammock at Northern Illinois University. Yeah, that's somebody I would send my kid to. And he's right. I mean, he's not wrong. How many of you, show hands, raise a hand if you can relate to what Coach is talking about there? I certainly can. You know, the experiences that I got when I was younger, and look, I'm not saying that I would turn down a chance to make millions in NIL dollars. Of course, I would jump on that opportunity if I had the abilities that some of these young athletes do. There's no question. But what happens when you face adversity? Is the best thing to do jump ship and get in the portal? Or maybe sometimes you got to stick it through. You got to fight through the adversity to be able to really grow. I was talking about this with somebody a couple of nights ago. I've discovered that the things that I enjoy most in life, or the things that I hold close to my heart that have great value to me, they're things that I had to sacrifice for, meaning things that I had to put in my time, my energy, my blood, sweat, and tears to be able to accomplish something. Anything that's come easy, it never really had any true value. You know, my broadcasting, I started out doing everything for free, hanging out in radio studios, helping out here, helping out there, doing high school broadcasts for $35 a game. I spent the same number in gas dollars that I did to drive out to the school to broadcast the game, but that ground cover work helped shape me. The physical training that I've done with Luke over the last 32 years, a lot of sacrifice and commitment, but we've grown through the difficult times, and now we've got 32 years to look back on with that experience, and we really enjoy it. I think it's why I enjoy golf so much. It's so hard, but the work I do with my coach and continuing to practice and play, it makes those days when you're playing well feel so good because you know the work that you put in. Yeah, I graduated from college. The main reason why I went to college is because I didn't think I would be able to do it. I didn't think I'd graduate. I didn't think I had what it took to be able to get a degree. So I buckled up and studied and somehow made it through. But I value that because I had to pay a price for it. And I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that. All right, big thanks to our guest today, Travis Demers, the voice of your Trailblazers. Sean Hiken, our Trailblazer insider from Rose Garden Report, for joining us in studio. And John Turock from BuyTheBlazers.com. Michael Shacker for engineering and producing the program. And to all of you, I appreciate your time as always. I hope you have a wonderful evening. And I'll be back tomorrow with the Rip City Drive at 3, right here in your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. Have a good night, my friends.